So week one is all about taking those first steps towards planning your research interview. And in this recording, for week one, I'll talk you through the crucial first step in your planning for your qualitative interview.
The next question is...
You're full of questions.
Now first, I'll tell you about this individual interview. It'll be an online interview, which you'll do over Zoom. Now this is assessment number 3. It's due for submission in teaching week 12, which is the final teaching week. Why is it there so late in the calendar? Well, because it involves some use of tech that you might not yet be familiar with, so it gives you plenty of time for that. And it also involves you partnering up with a classmate who will be your interviewee. And our lives are messy, so I've pushed the submission way back to give you some flexibility so that both of you can find time to do your interview and to give you that extra wiggle room to have a few tries at it if you screw up the first time round. Because you can, you're recording this interview, so if it goes wrong, just re-record it, do another one. Now, you should aim to do your interview in week 6, teaching week 6. But if it's later, that's fine. I'm not going to monitor you in relation to that. I just don't want you to leave it too late, because once you've done the interview, you've then got to edit your interview. Okay, so week 6 should be sweet. You should have plenty of time to get it edited and then submitted. And you also got to do a little bit of writing, but it's only a small, short piece of writing.
This interview is over.
Now, the technology bit, it's twofold. First, you've got to organise and record a Zoom meeting where you interview your classmate, and you're going to do that on your own. So I won't be there when you interview your classmate. So you need to know how to set up a Zoom meeting and how to record the Zoom meeting. And the second bit of the technology is editing that recording down to a 3-minute section, or just edits that are no longer than 3 minutes. So you're editing your interview down. Your interview will probably take 20 to 30 minutes, and I'm only going to look at 3 minutes of that, and you do the editing. And what I want you to do is edit in all of the best bits, edit out all of the mistakes and all of the rubbish, but include in the edit all of the things that you think show off your best interviewing skills. So, you don't have to show me your bad bits. You can make mistakes, and it's fine, and you can bury them in your backyard somewhere. Actually, it's good if you make some mistakes, because you're writing a reflective piece on your interview, and you can reflect on the mistakes in that little bit of reflective writing. It's the second part of the assessment. There's the recording, and then there's this piece of reflective writing. So by teaching week 6, what I'm hoping is that you'll have familiarized yourself with setting up a Zoom meeting and recording a Zoom meeting. And then you have a few more weeks after that to make sure that you can edit your recording. I'm going to put up a basic instruction video for you that will show you how to edit a video using the video editor in Windows 10. And that should be available to everyone on the unit, because that's the software that will be available on university computers, on the campus computers. If you can't get onto campus, or if you haven't got Windows 10 on your computer, the editing software, it's free, comes free with Windows 10. I think it's in Windows 11 as well. But if you can't access that, or you're using a Mac or using a Linux system, don't worry. There's lots of free editing software out there. You're just going to have to source it for yourself. I'll give you one suggestion of a piece of editing software, but you just have to find that yourself. But I'll provide you with the basic software, which is the software included in Windows 10. And if you use some other form of software, just do a search on YouTube. You'll find, as long as it's a popular piece of software, lots of free software out there. If lots of people use that piece of software, there'll be lots of tutorials on YouTube on how to use it. So that's the editing part. So that's the tech skills you'll need to acquire in order to submit the assessment. Now, I'm also going to provide you with some instructions on how to set up your Zoom meeting and how to record it. So don't worry, you're not on your own with that. If you don't know how to do it, I'll provide you with a video to show you how to do it. The other resource I'm going to provide you with is a video that gives you some tips on how to get a good looking video and good sounding audio for your recording, and particularly if you're using a webcam, because I imagine you're using a webcam. Most of us will just use webcams for Zoom, and webcams are a bit crap. I don't know if you've noticed this, but they're a bit crap.
It's going to be purple for some reason. I don't really know why it's done that. Hang on, I'll just open the window.
Most laptops have got really cheap webcams and really cheap microphones. So there's a skill involved in getting the best looking video out of these things and the best sounding audio. So I'm going to do a little video on that. The key thing is I need to obviously hear you. I need to hear what you're saying in the interview, but I also need to see you. So I'll show you how to look and sound good on the webcam.
This interview is over.
Okay, now your interview partner, this is going to be a random allocation. My tip here is get to know your classmates, and you can get to know your classmates by coming to the tutorials. See what I've done there? Because that's when you're going to be chatting with some of your classmates. So get to know as many of your classmates as you can, and that's because in week 4 you're going to be paired up with one of your classmates. It's going to be on March the 30th is when I send you the list of interview pairings. It might be nice if before March the 30th, if you've got to know some of your classmates, because you might be paired up with someone that you've already sort of had some conversations with. It's not critical, it's fine. It actually works perfectly fine if you're having an interview with someone you've not met before. It's okay, but it might break the ice just to go to those first 4 tutorials to get to know your classmates. Okay, I've spooked that enough, haven't I? Why can't I organise the pairings of interviewees sooner? Why can't I pair you up with someone in the class sooner than March 30th? Well, I can't organise it sooner because we have to wait until census date. Because until census date is passed, there's no guarantee that people in the class will stay in the class. So I might pair you up with someone who actually turns out to not be in the class. They unenroll from the class. So you've got to wait till week 4. And when you get paired up in week 4, you'll have a little bit of time there to start to organise your interview, a couple of weeks. In 3 weeks, actually, if you include break week. So it'd be 3 calendar weeks before you should start thinking about trying organising your interview. So that's the interview. Try to do it week 6, week 7. Don't leave it too late, because I want the materials that we cover in week 2, 3 and 4 on interviewing to still be fresh in your mind. You know, you could get a bit rusty if you leave it too late. So the other thing to think about here is, because there's a big lead-in time and a late submission date, if you screw it up, you won't really have the excuse of not having time to organise your interview. So just be aware of that you're not going to get a late extension. Of course, you will get a late extension if your interview partner's ill or you're ill and you miss a lot of teaching weeks. Of course, you'll get for stuff like that. But for not being able to manage your time, no. So watch out. Watch out for that.
You're full of questions.
Okay. So it's going to be, let me tell you a bit more about the interview. It's going to be a one-on-one interview, and the interview topic is on student mental health. But, and this is a big but, you will not be asking your interviewee about their mental health. There'd be a whole load of ethical issues there that we haven't got time to resolve, and it'll get messy, and we'll have to go through an ethics committee, and we haven't got time to do that. So instead, what we're going to be doing is asking about student attitudes towards mental health. So you'll ask your interviewee something like what mental health means to students. So a question could be, what do you believe is the general view of psychology students about the causes of poor mental health? So that's the sort of question that will be set for you. And when I say set for you, it will be set for you because I'm going to give you an interview guide. And the interview guide will contain all the questions, all the prompts for the interview, and so you don't have to worry about coming up with your own questions before the interview. Once you've done the interview and you've edited your recording of it, so you have a 20-30 minute interview, longer the better. The more time you have to establish rapport with your interviewee, the better. And you edit down that 20-30 minute interview down to a 3-minute video, then you submit that. Now, once you've done the interview and you've done your editing, showing me all your best interviewing skills, what you need to do is pay attention to the marking criteria, so you know what I'm looking for when I'm looking for the best bits. But then you'll also see in the assignment this reflective piece of writing. And this is where I want you to write up a short reflection on your performance in the interview in terms of how do you think you could develop your interviewing skills in the future? And that's when you could talk about the mistakes you made, that were on the cutting room floor. So I want you to talk about that, the things you could improve for the future to become a better interviewer. But I also want you to discuss the things you've learned about working qualitatively in psychology. What does it mean to be a qualitative researcher in psychology? And there it's tapping in to broader issues around the research paradigm and how well it's supported or fits into psychology. Now let's have a quick look at that marking rubric. So you'll get a sense of what it is I'm looking for in the interview. So there's a criteria for the reflective writing. That's down there at the bottom. I'll talk about that at another point. I want to talk about these top 3 criteria related to the interview. Now notice the first one. This is the technical bit. This is where you need to learn how to record good audio. This can be tough. It's not that easy to record good audio, but it's really important. It's important that your audio is clear. It's similar to having clear writing when you're submitting a written assessment. Here, your audio needs to be clear. That doesn't mean you have to speak with utter grammatical precision. Nothing about that. It's all about the quality of the recording, whether I can clearly hear what you're saying and your participant's saying. And I'll tell you how to record good audio in a video that's coming up. But I want to explain why this criteria is here. This criteria is here because when you're conducting a research interview, whether it's online or in person, it's really important to make a good audio recording because typically you'll need to transcribe the interview. And if the audio is poor, that can become a big problem because it can become very time consuming to transcribe it. A typical typist takes around 6 to 8 hours to transcribe a 1-hour interview. And if the recording is poor, that can blow out to over 10 hours or more, and that becomes expensive. And some things on your recording might actually not be retrievable. You might actually lose data. We also, these days, have increasing use of auto-transcribing software. It's not brilliant at the moment, but it's getting better. When it works, it's a big time saver. But if you have poor quality audio, it won't work very well, if at all. You get if you've got a Google Home or a won't say the name, Amazon. I won't call out the name to set off your Amazon Echoes. If you've got an Amazon Echo or Google Home, or that's the only 2 left. Cortana died, didn't it? So you got one of those things. You know how frustrating it can be. You say something, and you get misheard by the software.
Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Searching for cod recipes online.
pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Sorry, I can't find anyone named Rod K. More in your contacts.
What are you talking about, Hal?
Playing Talking Heads on Spotify.
That's kind of
I don't know
where
what you're talking about, Hal.
our software is up to at this point. Oh, Siri, that's the other one. That's appalling, by the way. That's our transcribing software is probably like Siri, which is appalling. Anyway, back to the point. You need that good quality audio to be able to use that automatic software, because if there's a quality problem in the audio, the software won't be able to cope. Now, this is one of the reasons why you don't submit until week 12. You know, if you have a tech failure, your recording is crappy, then you can have another go at doing the interview. You know, your partner has to agree, but I'm sure they'll help you out. So that's why it's a long time between week 6 is when I'm hoping you'll do the interview and submission, which is week 12. So I'll put together, one thing I'll do for you, I'll put together a little audio recording maybe, just of examples of what I consider to be HD quality audio, distinction quality, credit quality, pass quality, and fail quality audio. So you know what I'm looking for in terms of the clarity of the audio. Now, onto the other two criteria. We need to, this video is getting long.
This interview is over.
The two criteria for the interview, there are encouragement and flexibility and listening. And here's the first point that might surprise you. I want you to influence your interviewee. I want your behavior to change your interviewee's behavior. If this doesn't feel wrong to you, it'll likely feel wrong to your classmates, because it's weird that I would ask you, or it might sound weird that I'm asking you to influence your participant. It feels wrong, because mostly you'll have been told in psychology not to influence your research participant, that you need to remain detached or neutral. And I'm asking you to do exactly the opposite. I want you to influence your participant through showing them encouragement. And I want you to influence them to carry on talking. And that means you need to be engaging with your participant rather than detached from them. And you'll see that here in the marking criteria for encouragement, you'll see this explained. And another thing that might shock you is that I don't want you to stick to your interview guide. The interview guide I'm going to give you, which will give maybe 4 or 5 questions, I don't want you to stick to that guide. I want you to make up your questions as you go on the spot. Now, you only interview one person, but the approach I want you to adopt is to interview in such a way that your interview would be different for each person you interview. So I want your interview to be particular to that participant, to that interviewee, which means I don't want you to stick to the interview questions in the interview guide that I'm going to give you. And that means I want you to be inconsistent in terms of what questions from the guide you ask, or even whether you ask any of the questions at all. And if you look at the rubric under the flexibility criteria, this is where I'm assessing that, your ability to be flexible in how you ask questions. Look what's sitting there in the fail category for the criteria flexibility and listening. Questions asked in order set out in guide. So if you are in your interview, if you ask the questions set out in the order in the guide, that's a fail. Okay, so on that bombshell, and I'm not joking, I really want you to do this, and I'll explain as we go along why. But on that bombshell, let's leave it there. It's been a long video, and there'll be more from me on how to conduct yourself in the interview in later recordings. But first, I want you to start thinking about, why am I asking you to do these strange things that you might think sound weird or bonkers, or your classmates think sound weird or bonkers? That I want you to influence your interviewee's behavior, And I want you to avoid being consistent in how you ask questions. So why am I asking you to do that? It's not because I'm mad. There is purpose for this. So start thinking about that in week 1. Okay, so till next time, ta-da.